Yo, what's up? So, just had a friend ask if I was going to do a review on Stalker 2 after I finish it today. I said no, but I think I kind of changed my mind. So right now, in the meantime, I'm actually installing um Gamma because I literally can't get enough of this fucking game in the loop. So right now, I'm installing Gamma, and I will be pretty much starting that as soon as I'm done recording this. But like I said, in the meantime, like to just get started on a review on this one just to get it out the way because I like it so much. The community is kind of niche, so figured if this finds the right group, then it finds the right group. So pretty much to get started with everything, first and foremost, I absolutely loved it. I know just doing some, going through some Reddit forums, thing that nature, watching reviews because I kind of did some research on Gamma prior. Um, to kind of get a feel and an idea of what I'd be walking into. And a lot of people have been comparing that game to this one. So I just said, shit, I might as well, might as well see what's up. Um, I've dabbled a little bit with Gunslinger mod for Call of Pripyat before. Honestly, I didn't really get far into it. I think it was kind of a game I was playing while I was just stuck in limbo, trying to figure out what I wanted to play. So, I was just like, fuck it, just kind of let it be. And then saw Stalker 2 was coming out, and I'm like, shit, I really want to play that. So, you know, got through some games I wanted to because I kind of wanted to leave this one last because I knew I was going to be stuck in this one forever. I wanted to get through everything. I wanted to see everything. I wanted to do everything. So I knew going into this I would be in it for the long haul. So I kind of waited and waited, and thankfully, I kind of got into it after I think it was the 1.9 update. um, so and it kind of got good reception based on the community feedback. So I figured it was a good time to get started. So yeah, that was pretty much the history of how I got into Stalker and getting into this game. Like I said, playing Call of Pripyat, I knew what I was getting myself into. I wasn't completely blind to how Stalker plays and the gameplay loop, so I knew what I was getting into. Um, I first getting into it, the well, let me start with the good. Let me start with the good. Let me get my thoughts in order. Let me start with the good. The good, the visuals, atmosphere. I Outside of playing Skyrim as a kid, with that being like my first overall big open world RPG, with playing Skyrim as a kid, and then point I'm getting to is with playing Skyrim as a kid, this really made me feel like, how this made me feel like how I felt as a kid getting to Skyrim. Huge, massive world. You have all these different factions. You have the Ward, you have Duty, you have Freedom, Sparkers, Malachite Scientist, just your regular Stalkers. You have all of the points of interest, the ships, Zalicia, Rostock. I'm literally looking at them as I'm here. Um, Rookie Village, Cement Factory, and then you're meeting all these different people and all these different, like I said, factions, and experiencing the zone with all these different stalkers and all these stories intertwining and interconnected with all of each other. Like it was incredible. It really was incredible, and I really do feel like the overall world and the overall world and the atmosphere and the world building in this game is by far the best aspect of it. It is by far the best aspect of it because I truly felt like everything that led up to the ending that I got fit. Like there was nothing out of the ordinary that I felt was like, what the fuck? Like, why that happened? Why is this happening? Everything fit right in place, like a perfect piece of the puzzle. And I loved it. And just overall the atmosphere of it, like, when you get into when you start the game, it's just you and Professor Herman. Nobody knew who Professor Herman was at the beginning, but your skiff, you wake up, you wake up in your apartment as skiff. You see this anomaly fucking destroyed your home, and next thing you know, you're on a quest to find out the truth. And at the beginning, it's like a who done it. You're thinking that you're just dealing with these lowly stalkers, and you want to know why they did what they did, blah blah blah, whatever. That was your truth in the beginning. Was what was the artifact? What was this artifact? What was this piece? And then why did these people do it? And then your mind, like the game kind of treats you as a way of like, you're just dealing with lowly stalkers. They like there's these big people like Sidorfitch, the Gaffer, all these different people that you first meet. Um, whatever. You first introduced to the war and to the Colonel and all this stuff. And that's how the game's treating. Like the game's like, okay, like there's like a whodunit, there's like this, paramilitary conflict between the stalkers, the ward, and then Sparkers, whatever. And then like next thing you know, once you start getting into it, it flips from this very centralized conflict of just overall stalkers in the war, and like it's presented as like this really cliche fight, like this struggle fight within the zone while you're trying to figure out who did it. And then it flips into this like horror sci-fi story where now you're all of a sudden figuring out that everybody is basically living in this induced illusion, and everybody's basically fighting for a fantasy. While yes, things are real, such as the noosphere, and subtle matter, but at the same time, majority of these overall, figures such as Strelok and Scar and Dr. Dallin, Agatha, like all of these people are basically fighting for a truth within themselves, such as, is this an illusion? Is this real? Why did they do this? And it was really, really, really interesting. It was really interesting. And I really did enjoy figuring out, I really did enjoy the way that GSC brought you through the story. I really did. And I really do think that was the main hook, line, and sinker, was when you get that first overall, what would you say would be the turning point of the story? And it was like, okay, what the fuck are we dealing with? I feel like yeah, the turning point of the story when you're like, okay, what are we dealing with here? Was the moment What was the moment where you go get the emitter with Strider and you meet the Noontiders, and Strider's like, okay, I want this done. I want to work with Circa. I want to make sure that monolith never happens again. And then you enter that, and then boom, that's the story. Is like the story literally turns on like that, and it's like, holy fucking shit, like this is bigger than just finding out the truth. Like this is fucking nuts. And I can go on and on and on about why I feel like the story in the overall atmosphere and horror aspect of it, because I mean, I keep saying atmosphere, but everybody knows what I mean by atmosphere. How the game makes you feel. I mean, it does a great job. This the sound design, audio design. By sound design, I mean like the footsteps, the way that the air howls move, the way that the air howls around you, the way the when you're basically like fighting a mutant or whatever, that's using that C induction or whatever, such as the little dogs or the controllers or whatever. Um, and it was, I don't know, like I'm still kind of in shock about it, which is why I really can't get my thoughts about it, because I just enjoyed that part of the game so much. They did such a great job with creating this story. The way the monsters growl, the way the monsters genuinely make you feel like that there's some type of that there's a struggle there. Like there's a risk of going into this cave. There's a risk of fighting this monster. There's always some kind of a risk. And as you play the game, you really do feel like as a stalker, you're basically gaining this knowledge, this experience of how to handle and navigate these things because the game does not do that for you at all. How to navigate the monsters, how to fight the monsters, how to navigate the anomalies, how to basically, remove an anomaly like it's an obstacle in your way. The game doesn't do any of that. So as you're playing the game, it's it's doing it that for you. And for instance, like I didn't even realize that this was what I was looking, this was the video I clicked on just to have something in the background. But for instance, like getting back into the story, like this story was fucking insane. Like, this guy is basically like, oh, I have a plan, whatever. I have a plan to actually help control mutants. You're thinking, okay, this guy's doing a good thing because he was a circus scientist. This guy's doing a good thing. And the next thing you know, you travel and do all these, collect all these collars, and the next thing you know, this guy's fucking got 4 bloodsuckers on him, and he's fucking you over and essentially trying to make you his new Faust. And it's like, holy shit. And it's just, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. It really is, really is amazing. And then, moving into the atmosphere, like, when he traps you into the room, all the lights go out, and the next thing you know, you're dealing with these. And then I never knew, but you can actually use the floating chemical anomalies as basically is like is like an invisibility mechanic to see the bloodsucker invisible. I never knew that. I never knew that, and I actually commented on how cool that was. So the game does an amazing job. It really does do an amazing job. Moving into more gameplay, more gameplay. I felt like the gunplay was really solid. Gunplay was really solid. The survival mechanics were really solid. I'm gonna wait until I get to the cons for that. Um, the survival mechanics were pretty cool, such as being able to essentially disassemble guns. If you find one that had attacked, you can disassemble it, take it, sell it. Um, you know, you can. I feel like the economy was a little bit engaging in terms of things like that. Um, I feel like being able to unload guns on the floor, thing that you found, like interacting with the world like that. I think that they did a really good job. Um, what else is there in terms of mechanics of gameplay? Interacting with the anomalies was really interacting with the anomalies is really cool. Um, sometimes got it annoying, sometimes got a little bit annoying. Um, but overall, I do feel like it was pretty cool. Well, I'm gonna wait until I get into the cons because I do have a good bit of cons in this game that this game does have to clean up. Um, it's really all I can really think of. Sorry, like I said, I'm coming right out of finishing it, so I'm really trying to collect my thoughts and things of that nature. But yeah, that's really all I can think. That's really all I can think about when it comes to when it comes to like the mechanics and gameplay and things of that nature. Um, artifacts, artifact hunting, equipping artifacts is really cool. Having to basically pick and choose your greens and reds, and having to you decide whether I should take this, whether I should take that. Managing your weight, managing your food and your drink, and all that stuff. I felt like it was all really solid. It's all got a really solid, really solid foundation. Um, moving into like OST, soundtrack, sound design. I can't really say there was much of an OST, really. I mean, there was some music in there here and there when it happened, but it wasn't anything to go out about. So it was okay. It worked. Sound design, phenomenal. I really I think I really do think that if the game lacked in sound design, it would not be as good as it is. Even in its current state, where people are aren't really happy with what it's in. If it did not have the sound design that it did, which overall encompassed the overall atmosphere of the game, if it did not have the sound design that it did, it would not be half as good as it is. And I'll die by that, and I think other people would agree too, because the way that the monsters the way that the monsters interact with you via sound is what takes the cake. Hearing the bloodsuckers roar, hearing the little telepathic mutants, grunt, the way that they pick something up, having used the sound of when his his shield is down to go attack. Those little dogs that induce hallucinations on you, and using this sound to basically do a whole 360 surround sound on you to inflict these voices in your head. When you're fighting a controller, and then you just have that C warble that just keeps going on and on and on and on. I really do feel like all of it was really, really, really cool. The way that the environment interacted with you with sound, such as the Geiger counter, your detectors, how tactile everything sounded, the anomalies, the anomalies, the thermal anomalies, the chemical anomalies, the way that the kind of oil anomalies floated and made sounds in your head. It was all really, really, really cool. The way that the poppy field anomaly zone made you feel with the sound, and how it interacted with you falling asleep. It was all really cool. And like I said, if that part wasn't polished even nearly as good as it was, the game would basically be nothing. I mean, this game thrives on the fact that it needs good sound design, because without it, it would honestly be wouldn't say it would be a joke, but it wouldn't be nothing. Like, honestly, I probably wouldn't have even wasted my time with it. So that's pretty much that. So, all right, let's do a little thing. Commenting on world design, commenting on mechanics, gunplay, gameplay of what I liked anyway. Sound, OST, final, I guess, the story kind of went into play, but I just, throw a little bit out there. The story, I loved the story. I feel like it was a good bit of action game. It was a good bit of espionage. It was a good bit of, you know, um, political. It was a good bit of everything. And I feel like a game like Stalker needs all of those things to be relatively good in order to make the overall experience the way that it needs to be. So, um, I loved it. I loved it. I'm not gonna get into it, basically for spoilers. Um, but I loved it. So, and I got the ward ending for the ones that know. And after reviewing, how those other endings came to be, I am overly satisfied with the one I got. Overly satisfied with the one I got. Um, I wasn't a fan it on how it's perceived with Skiff at the end, but I am still satisfied with that one over the others. So that was the good. Now let me get into the bad. The bad. Um, where should I even start with the bad? I guess I can just start with. I mean, I really just have QOL complaints. Like one of like, for instance, let me get into it. Okay. So, as I said before, I've played Call of Pripyat, and the main thing that I remember from Call of Pripyat was the ability to have binoculars and night vision. Why the hell does this game not have neither one of those things? With how massive this game is, and with how mechanically complex they attempted to make this game, why the hell wasn't those two basic tools available to you? The game in itself is already dark, And I've made comments before about how sometimes the darkness ruined it because the way that the AI is programmed with the use of a flashlight, 9 times out of 10 completely fucked any kind of stealth experience that you were trying to make happen. And by default, the game is incredibly fucking dark. And in order to counteract that, you would have to increase the gamma. And in increasing the gamma would basically make the game much brighter than what it is and would ultimately ruin the experience. Because, like I just said, this game thrives on the atmosphere of the game. And by you arbitrarily increasing gamma, completely ruins it. Completely ruins it. So that was and that's just by using night vision. Binoculars, the game has good visibility. Probably a little too good of visibility, to be honest. But not being able to use your binoculars and scope out a POI before you get into it is kind of lame. Like it's kind of forcing you to get into it without any kind of plan, right? Like, if I wanted to go and explore a POI, I would basically have to just go jump into it and be like, okay, what am I going to deal with without actually being able to see? Because with binoculars, you'd be able to see, okay, there's a bloodsucker there. I can maybe get on this ridge and snipe him. Oh, I can see, one of those telepathic mutants, the small ones. Maybe I can just snipe them. Or maybe I can try to toss some grenades and surprise them, or put a fucking RPG through the window and kill him. Things of that nature would have definitely helped a lot. And that's just by including binoculars. So those two things, binoculars, lack of night vision. Honestly, the lack of night vision is probably a bigger thing than binoculars, just due to the fact of I've gotten fucked over so much with this game being as dark as it is, and leading into the next point, how short the day cycle is compared to the night cycle. I felt like this game was always at fucking night, and it was so fucking frustrating because the game in itself is beautiful. The world is beautiful, but you can barely fucking see because it's always night. It's always nighttime, always. And it was so annoying how often it was at night. And then, like, okay, sure. The day and night cycles can be, the day cycle can be short, night cycle can be long. Okay, well then give me some fucking night vision so that way I can see. That's how those two things come into play. And that was my biggest gripe, is how fucking short the day cycle was compared to the night, and then the lack of night vision. Because the only things you can use to see at night would be the flashlight. And then with the way that the AI is programmed right now, they can fucking see the flashlight a mile away, and then you have to turn it off. And then in order for you, and then if they do end up seeing you, you have to turn the flashlight back on. But then the AI blends in so well with the surroundings that you can't fucking see him anyway. So then it makes the flashlight useless. So then it's like, okay, so then I'm not even going to waste my time with this fight because I can't even see them regardless. So then that's where the night vision would come into play. Another thing that I didn't really like, honestly, if I have to be honest, those two things were the biggest things that I have a problem with. The others are probably just QOL kind of things. For instance, right now I have Trophy, the special ASL, the special AS Val variant. I found an AS Val well before it, but I couldn't use it. Let me rephrase. I couldn't use it with a red dot, despite me buying the scope attachment, the scope attachment, because with you buying the scope attachment, you couldn't put a red dot. But clearly, if you look at this video, it's literally got the scope attachment right here that That's the same exact one that you buy when you go upgrade it at tech. So it's like, why do I have, and then I'm not gonna lie to you. I looked it up. How can I get a fucking red dye? Because the iron sights for the AS Val are garbage. So it's like, how can I put a red dot on this gun? Oh, you need to go here. You need to go here. You need to throw a grenade, and you need to throw a grenade down here that'll explode 3 different silos in order for you to finally get an AS Val with a fucking red dot on it. Cool, whatever. That was annoying. Another thing that was annoying was I personally liked the AS Val, but I hated the fact that it was a 20 round mag. I didn't find a 30 round mag for the AS Val until I got to the very end of the game. Maybe I didn't do the exploring that I thought I did, but why did it take so long for me to find a 30 round extended mag for the AS Val? Why? Why did it take so long? Like, I'm literally not kidding. I found a 30 round mag for the AS Val like 10 minutes before the credits rolled. And then the ending that I got isn't an ending to where I can just go back to the zone. It's like, when you're done, you're done. That's it. You're done. So that was fucking lame. That was lame. And other than that, I felt like the map was pretty empty at times. I felt like the traveling was really boring at times and didn't really make for good streaming content, such as right now. I feel like the AI is a bit overtuned or needs some more tuning because I'd be getting fucking sniped across the map with a shotgun by an AI that's literally targeting me from behind a hill. I feel like they need to nerf bleed a little bit. Not the bleed itself, but the amount of time that you do bleed. Because, even taking a Vinka doesn't fucking help. I feel like the weight, I feel like the weight that you initially start with can be upped a good bit, maybe 5 kgs. Because I had a friend that came into stream and his biggest gripe was, how small of a weight size that you have initially. And for me, I didn't really find it a problem. I thought it was more fun because honestly, it alleviated me from fucking hoarding. So I didn't mind it. But my friend had to literally go buy a he had not buy, he had to go install them. He went and install the weight mod so that we can just be done with it. But little did he know that, or maybe, little do you know, as you progress to the story, you'll basically, you'll get to being able to equip exosuits, and then, using the exoskeletons, like for instance, the exoskeleton that I had before, that I'll put on after this, the diamond set, you can get, I think it's like 20, I think it's 26 kgs, 26 fucking additional kgs that you can carry. After I put that suit on, I never had to deal with weight again. I never dealt with weight again. It was nothing. I was able to take what I wanted, grab what I wanted, haul what I wanted, whatever. So I feel like initially, before the player is able to have access to the exosuits, they should, I feel like they can get away with upping the weight limit a little bit initially. They have some bugs that they can work out. For instance, I'm going to Malachite Station right now. Biggest problem with Malachite Station is when the ward invaded it. I don't know if it was a bug or if it was meant to be like this, but my Malachite Station was in a perpetual state of warfare, so I could never get into it by the regular means. I always had to go underneath the maybe I'll turn this way or whatever, but I always had to go underneath, in the pipe underneath and come up the ladder where you go and meet Scar at that one point and get in through it that way. I could never go through the regular doors. And on top of that, I was ward people would always spawn here. Always spawn here. So I was always fighting. And then with me always fighting, There was one point where, because I was fighting, that it actually turned the Malachite personnel against me as well. Now, thankfully, excuse me, when that did happen, I no longer needed them, but it was still annoying. So, um, what else is there? Oh, I maybe it's just maybe it's just my, my opinion, or gripe on it or whatever. The the guns. How can I say this? Because it might be a preference, it might not be. I wish that they had some kind of a way to make the guns feel more worthwhile to use. Like basically, once you, how can I explain this? So the way that the game feels like that it progresses you, like, for your power, such as, getting better gear, such as armor, guns, attachments, things of that nature. The way that the game progresses you with those things could be much better, honestly. And I'll explain why. So obviously you get to a point to where you go from using the AKM, the AK-74U, to and using the 545 by 39 ammo. Okay. You get past that. It starts introducing you to the 9x19, 9x18 weapons. Okay, you get through that. Then it starts introducing you to the 556 weapons. This is where it kind of hits a slop, because 556 weapons that you can get, other than the GP37, I think it's called, suck ass. And then you can't even get and then, unless, like I said, again, it might just be me not exploring, it took forever to find a suppressor for it. And then, because I like to take the stealth route if I can, and not being able to find a suppressor for it really dampened it. So I was stuck using the AKM because I found a suppressor for it. So then it leads you through using the 556 weapons. And then you start eventually finding 9x39. So then, once you get to 9x39, then you're introduced to the AS Val. When you get to AS Val is, you know, way more superior than all the other weapons in its class. Even the outside, it's a fucking fantastic weapon. But I don't know why it was like this, because I was finding so much 556, but then I would find drips and drabs of 9x39 around. And then I was spending, like, I probably spent over 200,000 coupons just to keep up with the ammo output I was using when I was using the gun. Like, using 9x39 felt more like a investment rather than an actual weapon that I can use and interact with the world with. I was constantly having to go back to a camp to buy more ammo for it. And then, coincidentally enough, once I start getting into the ending and I actually get into Pripyat, it's fucking dropping like hotcakes. Everybody's using one. It's everywhere. But then another coincidence is, once I stopped using the ASVAL and I slip over to the Denis Pro, that's how you pronounce it, I had no use for it anymore. And then finding 545 ammo was getting just as hard as finding 9x39. So it was a bit frustrating. It was a bit frustrating with the way that they progressed it, with the way that they progressed the weapons and the ammo on this. And I really don't know how they can fix it. I really don't know. They got the and the reason why I say that is because obviously they're trying to balance the fact of you're interacting with, this group and they use this weapons, whatever. A good thing about that is like, each group had an identity based on the weapons that they used. So, like, for instance, Freedom used ASVAL. or not my 39 weapons. Duty used for the most part, maybe 5.56. Sometimes they use that. Ward used, 5.45 weapons. And then eventually everybody started using the fucking RPK, RPM, whatever you want to call it. 7.62. Some people would use, the 308 weapon, things of that nature. That was a cool thing, but I think the way that the game progresses you via power scaling and how you interact with the enemies does need work. So, and all of that stuff, inevitably and inadvertently creates the flaw of the lack of ammo that you find once you start increasing or moving to a different weapon class. Because honestly, at a point, it was like, okay, I'm about to switch back to an AKM because I can't. I'm spending so much money on maintaining ammo for this weapon, which I can just go use a fucking AKM, take a very slight damage output cost, but then I'm finding ammo everywhere. So, whatever. That could be fine. It's whatever at this point. It's just a flaw, and I think that they can find some kind of way to fix it. Um, Other than that, I don't really have a gripe with the way the mutants were designed or how they interact or how you fight them. Um, I don't really have a problem with the anomalies. I do wish these warp anomalies or whatever, those that I just blew up. I do wish those I do wish you could see those a little bit better. Um, I do wish. No, I can't say do wish because that's overall that's overall how the game is designed. Being able to the visibility of enemies when you're fighting them in woodland spots or whatever. Um, I think I'm satisfied with what I got. I'm overly satisfied with what I got. Obviously, I think everybody knows the changes that need to be done with the AI and things like that. So, other than that, honestly, the game to me is an 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. Fix those things, whatever. One thing, and I even told my friend this. One thing that a game like this should definitely have is a fucking watch. Is a watch. Reason is because if they end up fixing the day night cycles, being able to use a watch, being able to have a watch on demand without having to pull up the fucking PDA all the time, being able to utilize a watch to plan when you want to go out and do a mission or when you want to go explore a zone where that there's an enemy faction there would be incredibly useful because I wouldn't have to fucking waste time pulling up a PDA. Okay, what time is it? Let me go sleep. Just being able to do this or do this with a watch, oh my god, it would make it so better. And then with that, they can start fixing the day and night cycles. And then with that, they can start fixing the visibility between night and day. And then with that, they can start, implementing night vision goggles, maybe thermal scopes, something. So whatever. I'm overall satisfied with what I got. Like I said, 8.5 out of 10. Um, the only complaint that one more complaint that I do have now that I'm thinking about it. Let me pause it because I don't want to spoil. One complaint that I do have is the ending difficulty ramps the fuck up. Not gonna get into it, but it fucking ramps. And it ramps hard in comparison to the rest of the game. I would say tune that down a little bit. Because when you get into the end, that is when the enemy tracking falls come out. That is when the enemy bullet drop and everything comes out. That is when the enemy spawns come out. I literally walked into a room and a fucking monolith guy just appeared out of nowhere. That's when all those combat flaws, excuse me, come out. Come out and it really does damper it. So they really, really, really do need to fix that. Other than that, game's 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. I think my gamma is done downloading. I'm gonna be pulling up or starting my gamma stream very soon to get into it. I appreciate everybody who came by, who subbed, followed throughout the journey. I really do appreciate it. Until then, to the next one. See y'all later. Thank you.